Hey everybody, welcome back to our semester cooking show. So tonight we're going to have 3 dishes that we're going to cook in an hour. We're going to cook a creamy polenta, we're going to cook eggplant ragu, and then we're going to finish off with dark chocolate pudding. We're going to create like a dirt style pudding. So a little bit of a fall Halloweenish style. So in your kits, you should have milk and all your ingredients. The only thing you may not have is bouillon. So you can use water. It's totally okay with that. So we're going to start out with the eggplant first because it takes some time to sit. So I've got a group of 5 students cooking with us tonight too. So we're going to walk around the room tonight and we'll get started with our eggplant. So everybody, we're going to cut our eggplant into 1/2-inch rings. So you have eggplant. We'll get that going. So get your eggplant unwrapped and wash it off. All right, so we've got our eggplants and we're going to actually cut to as close to the ends as possible. You can always do a compost and hang on to the ends. It's up to you. Okay, I'm going to wash that off. All right. So we're going to cut some 1/2-inch rings, about a 1/2 inch thick. So I'm going to cut to the edge of that eggplant as close as I can. And then I'm going to cut some 1/2-inch rings. And our recipe is a full recipe, so we're actually going to drop that down to a 1/2 recipe. How many of you are cooking with us tonight on Zoom? Right on. So I'm going to lay that out, and then I'm going to get this other one cut. All right. So then our process next is to kind of set it out on a towel. You could do a cloth towel, or we have some paper towels. I'm just going to lay my paper towels out, and then we can salt it just a bit. So I'm just going to lay it out. Okay. And then we're going to salt it. So some, as if you've joined us before, you know I always have like some fun facts. So some fun facts about eggplant. You know, some people would say this is Japanese eggplant. I've seen it called Chinese eggplant as well. So we're going to lay it out and we're going to salt it. And we're basically just sprinkling it to pull that little bit of the bitterness off. So just sprinkle a little bit on, and we're going to actually rinse it off after about 15 minutes. Because that also gives it just a little bit of flavor. So we'll get that mostly off. So we'll let that sit for about 15 minutes. Okay. And what's that process called now? That is called like sweating the eggplant, I guess you could call it, where we call it sweating. Is you're pulling that moisture, we're pulling a bit of the moisture out, some of the bitterness, and also it also creates that we get a little savoriness with the eggplant and the salt itself, but we're going to rinse those and then dry them off. So our next step is after that, we're going to dice it. So I'm going to let that sit for 15 minutes. So if somebody can give me a timer for 15 minutes, we'll be good for that. And then we'll start with our polenta. So we're going to switch gears, and you should have your polenta ready to go. So my first step in polenta is getting a 1 3/4 cup of water. So that's to make our broth. So we're going to do 1 3/4 cup of water. I'll leave it up to you if you want to do the 2 bouillon cubes whole. I mean, these are technically 1 per cup, but you could do all the bouillon in there. So you can do a little bit of a smash. We're going to mix that up. If you wanted to do vegetable broth, you could also do vegetable broth. But we're going to just kind of smash this. in there. Okay, so 1 3/4 cup of water. We'll let that sit for a second. All right. Then our next step is going to be, we need to bring our chicken stock. So I think I'll stir this just a little bit, just to mix it. Then we're going to put this in a pan with our milk. So we're going to use 3/4 cup of milk. Okay. Oops, I missed an eggplant. So I'm going to put it in a pan. I'm going to go with 3/4 cup of milk. You can use your same measuring cup. Save on dishes. Okay, 3/4 cup of milk. And we're going to mix that together. And I had a little bit of bouillon still left in the bottom, so I'll stir that up a little bit. So we just have it together in our pan. I'm going to grab a spoon real quick. Okay, so we've got our milk and our bouillon in here. So that's just ready to go for the polenta. And the reason we're doing this one next is because it actually takes about 30 minutes to cook. Okay, so we're going to bring this to a boil. So we're going to go get the right burn on, and I'll take it up to medium high heat. So on your stovetop, maybe like a 7 or between 7 and 8, medium high. We're going to bring that up to a boil. So we have to see it where we cannot stir it down. So that is a trick. Polenta is obviously one of our more ancient grains, right? We used it from corn. So it comes back ancient Rome. They used it for porridge. And it was really a poor man's food because it was easy, it was cheap, didn't take much to make. So they turned it into lots of different dishes. And we know it as like cornmeal. So you might think of polenta as cornmeal. So it's still got a kind of a gritty texture. But then there's other, if you buy it at grocery stores, you might even get one that's a little bit more powdery, which is more cake-like. So that's even a different variety. So this one has a little bit more of a little bit more coarse ground. But the other one that you can buy in a box at Safeway would actually be more cake-like, so that you're thinking of that sweet cornbread recipe mix. So this one just gives a little bit of a texture. Polenta is either creamy, like what we're doing, or it could be more of a firm. So you actually would cool it, and then you could slice it, and you could pan fry it, you could bake it, you could grill it, and you can put all kinds of sauces. Like what we're doing tonight, we're going to put that sauce below it. So we can do either way. Has anybody in our audience ever had polenta or made it before? I'd be curious to see what our group has had. Then I'm going to get this to boil. Anybody have polenta before? Oh, good. Okay. So it actually comes in different colors. So classic yellow is what we're dealing with. They actually had white polenta from Italy, which was white cornmeal, and then they added a buckwheat to it. So smooth, sweet product, but also then we could do buckwheat, which was cornmeal and buckwheat mixed, which gives us that darker, more nuttier flavor. So there's lots of ways to do polenta. We're just doing the classic yellow option. And interestingly enough, we can actually put it in desserts, right? You can mix in polenta into desserts or muffins, cakes. It's very, very randomly used and well used in the world. So common ingredient in Italy, of course. So we're going to learn how to create that creamy polenta tonight. While we're waiting for that, the next step will be put it into our mixture and then cook it about 30 to 40 minutes. So we'll time that. So you should have your milk and your chicken broth going. And depending on what type of stove you have, it might take a minute or two to get us up to that level. Yes. You could use the regular cornmeal, but it tends to be a little powderier, like the box version. I would grab my box version that I have in the lab, and I could show you that in a second. If Arby wants to walk and show a little things, I'm going to grab that so we can look at the difference in the textures. Okay, Arby. So if we didn't have polenta, then we would have cornmeal. And this is your traditional box. Like I said, you get it at Safeway, and it has an inside bag. It's kind of got like an orange out exterior box. But if you look at the difference, this one's very cakey. See, the one on my right is cakey. So how it sits and it stays firm, but this one is still granular. So there is a big difference. This is your traditional cornmeal that you'd see in cornbread. And then polenta would definitely be a little bit more of a coarser texture. This one stays a little grittier. I've used both in cornbread recipes. This one gives you a little bit of a crunchiness. This one definitely cake-like. So different grind. You can kind of see the different grind there. But they would both work. All right. So we're getting closer to boiling. So you've got your cheese that we're going to add to this. We're going to add butter. So you should have let me double check. We're going to have a 1/4 cup of butter. So a 1/2 stick of butter should be in your packet. And that will be part of your recipe. So a 1/4 stick of butter. And then we have our cheese. So we're going to have the Parmesan cheese, this, and you could add more salt if you'd like. And then that will flavor it. But first off, we're going to do our polenta and the milk. But I want to get this to boil. Getting close. We almost have like a scalded milk. And the way we can tell that is you can look at the edges of your pan and you'll see that sticky protein that coagulates on the side of the pan. Then we're going to eventually add our polenta. How's my time on my eggplants? And you can show how they've sweat. 5 more minutes? Okay, so you can see how they've sweat. Like we're getting, that one has a little bit of polenta on it, but you can see the droplets of water. This one did not have it. So that's a good example of what happens when you don't put salt on it. It doesn't sweat. And if we talk about eggplant a little bit, so eggplant ragu came from a French word that is ragoûter, and it's known as, or it's translated as awaken the appetite. So typical ragu, we are giving you a shortcut version tonight where we don't have you making the sauce. But if you were going to make the sauce, I mean, you basically would have some aromatic ingredients like your onions, your celery, and your carrots, which is known as a sofrito. And you would saute that in olive oil. That would be your base. Then you would definitely caramelize your eggplant, which we're going to do in a pan tonight. And then we would also have tomatoes, red wine, maybe a stock like we put in chicken broth. And then a liquid would help get that together. And then we would cook it for a good period of time to get those flavors to come as one. And then the seasonings would be basil, oregano, chili, whatever is interesting to you. And then it simmers for like 30 to 40 minutes. So tonight we're going to give you a taste of the fastest way around it, which is your homemade or your jar of Rao's marinara sauce. Okay. All right. So we are at boiling. And I'm going to add my polenta. Okay. We're going to stir it here and there, but we don't have to stir it the whole time. So we want to get it so that it's mixed up together, and then I'm going to reduce my heat to medium. So I'm going to take this down right now. I had it on pretty high. So I'm going to take our heat down to medium on your polenta. So we'll take it down to medium. And that's where we're going to just let it sit 30 to 40 minutes. So we need a timer for about 30. Let's go 35. Right in the middle. Okay, so we're going to let that cook. We can come back to our eggplant is probably close, right? Is our eggplant timer good? 2 minutes. Okay. Little bit more about eggplants. This is a number one question for those of you in the audience or out in the Zoom world. Is it a fruit or is it a vegetable? I'll let you think. Is it a fruit or a vegetable? Any answers on Zoom? Fruit or vegetable? Fruit. How many in here say fruit? Yeah, good job. It's a fruit. Why? Has seeds. What else makes it a fruit?
It's not a vegetable.
Not a vegetable. It starts from a flower. So anytime you start with a flower and have seeds, you have a fruit. So it's a botanical fruit, even though it's in the vegetable category. And fun thing is there are some that are white, right? So they look like little eggs. I turn my heat down on my mixture. All right, so eggplants. Fruit, not a vegetable. However, it is a vegetable for us. And then it is a nightshade vegetable, which means, or a nightshade fruit, which means any other of you know other nightshade vegetables or fruits? More fruits. Do we know the nightshades? No. A tomato is a nightshade. Does anybody else know any other nightshades? Whoops.
Is that the only answer?
A tomato. Not mushrooms.
I know. Peppers?
Peppers.
You really want me to talk sweet potato?
Nope. Peppers, potatoes, and tomatoes. So those are your nightshades. And at one time they thought they were poisonous. So people were not, consuming them, and they were bad. So eggplants have come a long ways. So now we have lots of varieties. Obviously, we were using the Chinese or the Japanese style, but you can get the round eggplant. So I have another trivial question for everybody. What was the heaviest on record eggplant grown globally? I mean, we've gone outside of the globe of the US. So any idea? Timer's done on my eggplant. So I think what I'll do, I'm going to take it over and I'm going to rinse it. I'll use my milk container. I'm just going to rinse this out. But how big is the biggest eggplant grown? We'll take some guesses. All right, going to rinse it. And then I'll dump off the water. And then we're going to kind of dry it. So I'm going to grab a couple more paper towels. All right, so we're going to bring that back over to our cutting board and grab a couple paper towels. And we'll get that dried off. Did we get any guesses on our heaviest eggplant? Whoa, whoa. Okay, 17 is closer to where we are. That was good. 17 is close. Any other guesses? Oops. We're going to put this all across. It was actually grown this last September, just last month, on record, the heaviest eggplant. So 17 is still too high? No other guesses? What was our heaviest eggplant? The world record before that stood with a US gentleman who grew an eggplant, and his was 8 pounds. So maybe that gives everybody an idea a little bit closer to where we might be in the realm of the heaviest. I'm just flipping these over so I can dry both sides. Okay. Now we're going to cut these and dice them into 1/4 inch diced. And I'll stir my polenta a little bit. Oh, that's looking really nice. Okay. So I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to try and stack them because we want to get into 1/4 inch slices. Maybe too high. Then you could cut them into quarters. You can line them up however, whatever is easiest for you. So I have tried white eggplant. Has anybody tried white eggplant yet? Anybody tried white eggplant? Nobody. They grow it out at the Urban Garden Center in Pearl City. Yeah, so they grow it out in the Urban Garden Center at Pearl City. It's very good. I didn't notice that much of a difference in the flavor, but the color is kind of fun. The skin is white like an egg, and it grows long like these. And still no guesses on my giant eggplant. Do I need to give it away? No more guesses. Okay, it was 11 pounds, 3 ounces. And it was actually a gentleman from Switzerland, and it was just this September 12th of 2025. He now holds the world record for the largest eggplant. And the last one before that was an American in August who had an 8-pound, I think 5-ounce product. So pretty close. So you can think about 11 pounds. I think what we had for your recipes was like a pound. So you can imagine how big a 11-pound eggplant would have been. How's our people cooking? Jesse, how's our cooking group? We're doing good? Wonderful. Some of these, I think you can use your best judgment on size. Wonderful. So this is also another option instead of using meat, right? Because most ragús are made with meat, but it's nice to use vegetables every so often and get our dose of our dose of vegetable needs in. So that's why we chose to do with eggplant. Plus, eggplant is locally grown, so we can locally source eggplant here, which is nice, and you can actually grow it in your own gardens. So it's even better for us to use locally because we can make it grow it ourselves, right? All right, so now we have, let me go back to my eggplant recipe, and we're gonna do our skillet. We're gonna turn that up to medium high, and then we're gonna put in the olive oil. So I've got a skillet. Your olive oil is in your jar that looks like this. And we'll turn on our burner and get this up to about medium high. I'll put in my olive oil. Okay, we're gonna get that nice and warm. Whoop. So we're gonna also then add our eggplant, and we're gonna lay it We're gonna try and have it as a flat surface, so it'll cover the whole pan. And it's still not hot because it's still not moving around very well. We want to get that so it starts to shimmer. Oops. Eggplant's kind of fun because it actually absorbs some flavors from other things that you mix with it. So our sauce from the Raú's marinara sauce will actually kind of absorb into there. Plus, we're also caramelizing those eggplants. So the sugars of the eggplant will kind of come out and creates that nice sweet taste. Plus our Raú's sauce as well. If you were to make your own marinara sauce, you could do that as well, like I mentioned before. And then anybody know where the top global producers of eggplants are? There's two top globally. I mean, we grow our own here, but where do they grow it like mass production? But there's two top countries that grow it as a constant. And we're looking for that shimmer. Any idea where we have two top producers? China's one of them. So see how it's got a shimmer to it? Can you see, pick that up a little bit? I don't know if that shows. We're also going to hear it sizzle when we put our ingredients in there. We can get it, catch it on the shadow, the edge. A little bit. Plus it's moving around a little bit faster. India is the other one. So India and China are the national or globally the biggest eggplant producers. But the fun thing is we can grow it here in Hawaii. Has anybody grown eggplant locally? Now you can see the shimmer. Maybe, but also we'll see it. Let's see if we can get a sizzle off of our. That's how we know we got it hot enough. Not quite hot enough. Well, it'll go a little further. Has anybody grown eggplant here locally? Anybody online grown eggplant? It's one of the easiest things to grow here. Wonderful. There we go. Now it's got to see, we've got the sizzle going. So I'm going to add my eggplant. And I'm going to try and get that into my pot that is just flat. So I can flatten it out a little bit. And I don't want to touch it for about 7 minutes. So I'll time that. And then that creates that caramelization of the eggplant. So we want to let those sit for a little bit. All right. Wonderful. I'm glad that somebody has tried growing it. It's very easy to grow. Okay. So our polenta looking pretty good. Maybe my heat was a little high. I've got a little bit of a crust on the bottom. So watch the heat of your stovetop. Whoops. Timing on our polenta. Timing on the polenta? 20 minutes. Okay. What I'm going to do now, just as a backup. So I had some basil hanging around. We don't always have basil, but if you grow basil in the garden, very easy to grow again. So if you have basil and you want to put that as a topper for your polenta and ragu, we can do the leaves. We're going to take them all off. I'll take off. I can leave some, but I've got some nice, good sized leaves. This is more of your sweet basil. Thai basil would be more of like the purple, you'd see a little bit of purple stems. So we've got the leaves. This is a chiffonade cut. So we're going to take the leaves and then I'm going to roll it. So I'm going to roll it up and then I'm going to slice across it with my chef's knife to create what we call chiffonade. And there's something about fresh sliced basil that's just amazing. So it's a nice additive for your dish. So now it's more little like fluffier than a typical just chop it up. So that's the chiffonade cup cut for basil. Okay, so you can leave that if you have some, or you want to consider that in your dish when you make it tonight or the next time you make it, you can definitely do an opportunity for that. The other cool thing about eggplants is the purple color. We didn't talk about that, but the purple color is the specific pigment. That pigment is anthocyanin. We do know that there's a lot of benefits to anthocyanin, so we can actually get helpful heart, may help the heart. So using purple foods, we don't have a lot of purples, but eggplant is one of our options. So that pigment of dark purple. And if we think of other vegetables or fruits that have that dark purple, does anybody have any ideas of what other ones we have out there to choose from? What other purple items do we have? Plums, yeah. Grapes, uh-huh. Think about purple cabbage. We've got blueberries, it's kind of that purpley color. Yeah, I mean, there's probably more of probably not as much anthocyanin, but purple carrots, because I don't know if anybody's cut into purple carrots. They're kind of fun. They tend to have there's like a white streak, so they're not real dark, but yet they do have that nice purple color to them. So you can make some fun ingredients with different colored carrots. Good thought there. Yeah. Yep. Anything like the purples, any of those colors is your anthocyanin. All right. So while that eggplant is sauteing, I've got 3 minutes left on that. My polenta is getting close. And we can always, you can always add salt to your polenta. You can do anything that you want to do to add flavor. I'm going to get a 1/4 cup of sauce ready. So if you have you have a lot of marinara sauce at home now. So any ideas on what you're going to make with your remaining marinara sauce? Any ideas? Would love to hear about it. What other ideas might you do with your leftover Rouse marinara? And we're going to actually flip our eggplant. It's caramelizing really nicely. Okay. Because I think this is I need to clarify and make sure. Are we doing a half a recipe on our? So it should a half of what we have here?
Maybe a 1/4 cup of sauce.
Okay, so I did a little extra. That's okay. We can add extra onto our ragu. I've got 2 minutes on the eggplant. So 1/4 cup of sauce or extra if you'd like. So a minute, and I'm going to try and flip my eggplants over. And you can I can smell the caramelization of the eggplant. It smells yummy. So a couple ways to flip it. I don't know if anybody's like good at flipping their pans. You can flip it that way, or you can flip them, with a spatula. It's up to you, but you can try either way. So we'll try and get that flipped over. I mean, it comes down to just stir it so that you can get your other sides together. But if you had good sized pieces, it would possibly flip nicely. So we'll try and flip it over a couple times. You should be able to might be a little high. Then we flip it over and we're gonna saute. We've got a little bit of dark saute there going on. So we'll do that and let it sit. Then we'll get the rest of that mixed up. Let me turn off my timer. Okay. We got 5 minutes on that. Let me do 5 minutes. Ooh. Our polenta's getting nice and thick. We're gonna finish putting our sauce on there. So we're gonna sprinkle black pepper on if you want to put black pepper in there. We're gonna add our sauce and then we're gonna let it simmer. So we're gonna let it basically the sauce will reduce so we get a little thicker sauce. And our polenta's good. Our chiffonade basil's good. And then our next step will be, like I said, combine those together and then we'll start on our pudding. So you should have another saucepan in your, let's talk a little bit about chocolate. So chocolate, we've got a special brand of chocolate for us tonight, which is a dark chocolate and it's got a specific name, which if we come over and it is known as Valrhona chocolate. So RB is going to come over here and we're going to show you a little bit about our different chocolates. So the recipe calls for black chocolate. So here is the darkest black chocolate. And then you can go up. So Valrhona is what we're using tonight, which is a little bit more on the little more red tone. And as you can see that as we go up, this is a Ghirardelli cocoa that you can buy on the market. And you can also buy Hershey on the market. So these are all the different shades of cocoa. And we're working with Valrhona. Now, the difference between these two, the Valrhona and the black, is they're both alkalinized. So they're both treated with a solution. And obviously the Valrhona has a little bit more of a reddish tint compared to, if I pick this one up, is definitely black in comparison. So we're seeing a difference between the two. And that's black. So black chocolate is used for lots of different products. And there's a lot of fun recipes for black chocolate. But you can see, maybe if I can get this to stick on my fingers, see the very different colors. Right? So that we're going to be using the Valrhona tonight, which is actually one that more professionals actually use. So it'll be a nice, creates a nice pudding. And I think I'm ready, pretty close to ready with for my sauce. So your eggplant has basically gotten more tender and we're getting closer to being able to get that sauce on there. So back to my chocolate. So this is our, if you want to start the chocolate pudding, we're going to get a medium saucepan that we're going to put in our milk. So this one is using are we doing a full recipe for this? So saucepan, and how long on my polenta? Because I'm going to use my burner. 6 minutes. 11 minutes. Wow. All right. So I'll just do that one's it. That's why we started that one as we did. All right. So I'll do this. So we're going to go a full recipe, which is 2.5 cups of milk. I'll rinse this out. So you all have cartons of milk. So we're going to go 2.5 cups of whole milk. Now, for someone that is lactose intolerant, you could definitely use lactate or soy. It really just, it's up to you. We have the whole milk here, but you could definitely sub it with anything. So we're going to go 2.5 cups. The nice thing about the particular brand that we have is it's shelf stable. So until you open it, it doesn't need to be refrigerated. So that's what's nice about these. So once we do open it, you want to put it in the fridge, but it can actually hang out with not putting any kind of refrigeration. So does that great for disaster preparedness We're not going to put, whoops, I need to put half of that cup into a bowl. So before you dump it into your pan, we're going to put the 2.5 cups, pour off a half a cup into your bowl. A little more. Half a cup into the bowl. Yep. Because that's actually going to mix up with our milk, or we've got the cornstarch, salt, and egg. So that is my eggplant timer. So I'm going to add my sauce to my eggplant. And remember, I was going a little heavy on my sauce. I'll turn my heat down a little bit. We've got that simmering. It might splatter a little bit I'm going to turn my temp down a bit because I just want it to simmer. I want that sauce to pull up into the eggplant. So I'm going to let that simmer a bit. Again, it's up to you. If you want to go more than, I did a half a cup of sauce versus a 1/4 cup of sauce. So mine will be a little bit more of the tomatoey sauce. Okay, so we'll let that sit. And that'll sit for about, let me go back to my recipe. We're going to let that sit and reduce for about 5 minutes. So I'll set another timer. All right. Polenta's going. How's everybody doing in the kitchen? Fabulous? Right on. So as your polenta is getting closer to done, as we get down to that point, we're going to put butter, which we're going to have another half stick or a 1/4 cup. We're going to put that with our Parmesan cheese. And then we're going to also add salt and pepper, and then we can combine it. So we're just going to mix that together and make it a nice, smooth consistency. So again, if you've got salt and pepper at home, you can add that. All right. In your bowl with your milk, you're going to add your cornstarch, which is your CS. You're going to add your salt, which I think is like a pinch of salt, basically, because we're doing a full recipe, so a 1/4 teaspoon. So we're going to add our cornstarch to this. I'll mix that up in a minute. Cornstarch. We're going to do salt. I'm going to grab the salt in a second. All right. So we were talking about the cocoa. So funny thing is with, thank you, with our cocoa, right? There's actually caffeine in there. Not much, but it's there. So there is caffeine in dark chocolate, which is nice. And then we also, sorry, I'm going to add my cornstarch, salt, egg yolks. So there is a little bit of caffeine in cocoa. And what we'll do is we think about it's got 12 to 13 milligrams per tablespoon of caffeine. So not too bad. I mean, you think about what does a cup of coffee have? A cup of coffee has about 95 milligrams, depending on what kind. And then a cup of tea would be like 47 milligrams of caffeine. So we're not looking at anything drastically, but yes, it does have caffeine. So it may keep you up a little bit more at night if you have dark chocolate. So we're going to do egg whites. And what I would do with if you've got your kit and you want to do egg whites is we're going to put the egg yolks into our mixture with our milk, cornstarch, and so on. You can put your egg whites in your cup. So we'll crack it and then we'll, got to get some things out of the way. We'll move it so that we can actually crack it and put the egg whites into here. Now there's a lot of different techniques to separating eggs, but this is probably the most easy without having any special tools. Some people will hold on to the egg yolk. Anybody want to share any tricks to your trade on how you do egg separation? Next one. Ooh, that one I really hit the. Any other tricks on how you all separate? I know some people have used like a bottle, empty water bottle, and tried to suck up the egg yolk or the egg whites. I never can get that to work, so I just do the eggshell. They actually sell some fun tool. Oops, I almost put that in the wrong spot. They almost sell some, or they do sell some fun tools that will actually, you can do an egg separator. All right. And if you are right on, amen, Gwen. That is another way of doing it. So I'm gonna wash my hands real quick. Absolutely. All right. So our eggplant pretty much done. That's sitting here simmering up. Polenta's done. Okay, so I'm gonna turn off my eggplant. And then I also now have my polenta, which has gotten nice and firm. So I'm gonna add the butter and cheese. So I've got a half a stick of butter. Well, we're getting tight on time, everybody. So we're gonna add our half a stick of butter. And then we'll add our cheese. And you can always add pepper if you'd like. You can, of course, taste it to see what you like. If you want salt, we were going to do a half a teaspoon of salt in here as well. Get that to melt down. I didn't add any salt yet, so I'm going to add a little bit of salt. So we're going to add a half a teaspoon of salt. I have a quarter, so I got to go 2. Okay. And we'll go with some fresh ground pepper. I'm like I like blackened stuff, so I love a lot of pepper. Somebody have a question, Jesse?
Yes.
Yep. That's a good question. It's a brand. I found it at Chef Zone. So it is a brand, and Chef Zone obviously caters to the chefs of the world. So they have a little higher end product. So that was a brand. All right. So now we've got our cheeses mixed up in there, and we can put it into a dish to serve, and then you can put your eggplant ragu right on top, as long as your butter has melted. Okay. There's our creamy polenta, and here's our final eggplant. So I will show you a dish that we put together earlier, and that is our final polenta on top of, a polenta base with the ragu. So I can show you how. Oops. We'll just plate this up real fast. There we go. Make sure my burner's off. And then I'll put my eggplants on top. There we go. And then I have my fresh basil we can put on top. And again, you can put as much basil as you'd like. Okay. So there is your cream of polenta and eggplant ragu. All right, we ready to start on our pudding? We gotta chop everybody. Okay, so pudding. Let's go for, let me make sure I got everything in here. Milk, cornstarch, salt, egg, vanilla. So you have 2 little containers of vanilla. Make sure you dump one into your egg yolk mixture. I can open it up. Ah, I'm gonna put one in there and I'm gonna whisk it. You'll feel the cornstarch at the bottom is stuck to the bottom, but that's all right. We're gonna turn that into a mix. It's actually called a slurry, right? So we're gonna take cornstarch in a cold mixture and then we're gonna heat it up and that's what causes the thickening of it. Okay. So we're gonna get I didn't heat up my milk yet. So I'm gonna heat up my milk and we're gonna get that till a point where it's actually just steaming. So we've got our milk and our sugar and our cocoa powder together. So we're gonna put, here's your sugar and cocoa powder. I need to grab I guess I can use a spoon. We're gonna mix this together. So that your sugar and your cocoa powder is all in there together. And it might take a minute to blend that down and get those, but as it heats up, it will blend together. So we're gonna get that up to warmed up to steaming. We don't want it to necessarily boil.
When it starts.
So we're gonna get this to steam. If you don't have black cocoa, like we didn't have black cocoa for this particular option, the one that we picked, the Valrhona is an option. You could obviously do your other products that are out on the market. You can get any of them out there. But if you do have the black chocolate and it's available on Amazon, you can find it there. King Arthur variety is a nice one. That's what we have in our cup. And if you want to put to try it without, because it doesn't have the sugar, obviously that's just the powder. You could definitely try it and see if you wanted to, if you enjoy that non-sweetened powder. So our goal is we're going to create a fun pudding and we're going to turn it into a really cool dessert. So the dessert is actually called dirt pudding or dirt pudding cups. And it's actually kind of some fun history about it. So it's not been around all that long. If you think back to if you were a child and you had dirt, I didn't grow up having, it sounds funny, I didn't grow up eating dirt. However, this is one of a newer product to the Americas. And so back in roughly about 1980s, the Midwest came up with this. And here's even more of a fun fact is that it's not from a bunch of chefs that created or a fancy restaurant that created it. It was a bunch of moms that created it. So they figured out how to make dirt and they loved it. And it went to potlucks and people just enjoyed having dirt. So they actually have originated in 1980s. In 1988 was the very first printed variety of it in the Arkansas Democratic paper. And there's also another one called Kansas Dirt Cake. So it's homegrown. It's kind of fun. And anything you want to add to it, right? We gave you options of Oreos. We have gummy worms or gummy snakes, I think we were calling them as well. We have white chocolate tombstone, a white chocolate monster hand. You can decorate it however you want. With your whipped cream, keep it in your fridge until you're ready to whip it up. And then what we'll do is we're going to have you whisk it. And you can whisk up your whipped cream. I think probably more of the challenging part is we're going to take this hot milk and we're going to add it to our egg mixture. So I don't want us to scramble the eggs. So our technique is called tempering. And so we're going to temper the egg mixture, but it's not quite to the point where we need it to go in yet because we want to get it hot. We want it to steam. And I did get a little bit on the edge, but we're going to try and get this to steam. So I'm looking for a little bit more. You may have to stir up your cornstarch mixture because the cornstarch might settle out. So we're doing something called tempering eggs. That's a hot mixture. If I pour it right into my egg mixture, I'm going to have scrambled eggs. I don't want you to have scrambled eggs tonight for chocolate scrambled eggs with that. So I want you to do a little bit at a time of your hot liquid. Pour it just very so slightly into your egg mixture. Stir it up a little bit more and just keep adding it a little bit more until you get your egg temperature to rise is basically what we're going to do. And then we'll put all of our egg mixture back into the pot and stir it until it gets thick. And you'll know when it gets thick. It took probably like 15 minutes or so to get to the thickened state, and you don't feel like you have to pull it off too soon, but it'll actually create that thickened pudding consistency that you're expecting. Okay. So I'm still waiting for that to get warm. I don't want to get it too hot because that's a big risk. We have vanilla and sugar. That's going to go with your whipped cream. So for everybody, if you're going to do your whipped cream, you've got sugar and you've got vanilla. It's like watching a pot boil, right? How's everybody doing online with cooking? So far, so good? All right. I have some fun facts about Oreos. So we sent you home with some Oreos. Wonderful. Wonderful. I sent you home. We've sent you home with some Oreos. So I do have some fun facts about Oreos. Anybody have an idea of when they were first introduced? It's before my lifetime. But when was Oreos first introduced to us? Guess it's in the 20th century. So I'll give you that's a clue. When were they introduced? There actually is a National Oreo Day, which they celebrate. They celebrate it in March. So March 6th is National Oreo Day. I don't know if anybody realized that. I didn't even know we had a National Oreo Day. So National Oreo Day is March 6th. But oh my gosh, somebody got it. 1912. Right on. 1912 is when Oreos were first introduced. So as you can imagine, they have changed in flavors. I mean, now we have over 85 different flavors. Now, that doesn't mean they're all available at one time, but they are available and they are out there. So anybody have a favorite flavor of Oreos? And my milk is getting nice and warm. Any favorite flavors of Oreos?
Anyone try the
I'm going to add a little bit of milk. So this is our tempering. So we're going to add just a little bit of chocolate. So our goal is not to scramble the eggs. So right now we're looking good. Add a little bit more. It's kind of dripping off the side of my pan. Oh, dark chocolate. So here's the fun thing. You are cooking with dark chocolate. I mean, our Valrhona chocolate is nice and dark. But guess what? Oreos is made out of black chocolate. That's why they're so smooth and so nice in the form that they are. So black chocolate is what we use to make Oreos. So that I think that was kind of a bit of a fun trivia. November 12th, November 21st, 2011, a Guinness Book of World Records was awarded to a company that made Oreos. And that was because they had the best and biggest selling cookies in total sales by that point. $500 billion since 1912. So they are now ranked as, they've had a world record, $500 billion. So kind of a cool statistic there. We've had 5 or 6 new flavors in 2025. There's actually been 6 new flavors, believe it or not. Anybody know any of the new flavors? So that's pretty good. We've got our egg mixture, and now I'm going to combine them together. So see how we created foam. Don't worry about the foam, but you shouldn't see any chunks. Should be just a good foamy mixture. And if I felt the bottom of my pan, it's warm. So I can now add this to my chocolate mixture, and I'm going to whisk it up. We're running a little late. I appreciate everybody that's on. If you have to drop, we totally understand. We will be here until we finish. So I'm going to get this and I'm going to cook it. I probably won't keep you on this whole time while you're cooking your pudding, since we got you through that. The hardest step was the tempering. So now that you've got your mixture tempered, now you're going to cook it and you're going to whisk it and you're going to get it to consistency that you'd prefer. So it will thicken up, and we want to get it. We can show you across the way. That's another one that's on the works of process of cooking. So we want to get it up to a boil. You don't want to cook it super hot, because then you'll end up probably scorching or putting it on the side of your pan. So you want to get it up to a boiling point, and then we're going to cook it for about 2 to 3 minutes. So it takes a little bit of time to get the consistency. So I'll tell you some of the, because I was questioning to see if anybody knew the new flavors. So Selena Gomez had the new flavor out, right? Hers was like a cinnamon and dark chocolate variety. We also had Game Day. So they were doing Game Day like colors. And they also did s'moreos. So those are some of our newest Oreos. 2015, they introduced Oreo Thins. So if you enjoy those thin Oreos, those just came out in 2015. All right, so I'm going to let that pudding get to boiling, and here is what you'll end up with. So once your pudding gets to the right consistency, and again, you're going to judge that and be alert. It will burn to the pan if you're not careful, so keep stirring. Also, make sure you don't get too high of a heat. Be patient, trust your recipe, let it go and let it cook a bit. So then you can do your dish. You all went home with a glass, like a custard cup, the ruffled edge custard cup. So you can pour in some pudding in that. You can let it solidify in the fridge. You can put a piece of saran wrap on the top of it so that doesn't create that film. And then once you pull it out, you can take your Oreos and crush them up. You can add your Monster Hand, your Rest in Peace Tombstone. We did whipped cream that we turned into a ghost. And you've got pumpkins and you've got gummy worms. So you can do whatever you want. And this is traditional dirt. This is our potluck. Kids love this. So if you don't have a chance yet to make this and you want to do it in the future, it's a lot of fun. Take it to potlucks. People can design their own. You could, have a dirt bar, right? And you make your own. So hopefully your dessert and your Ragú and your polenta came out perfectly. We're so glad you joined us. I'll let all of you go because we've still got things timing wise here. Any questions from audience? Wonderful. Couple people to thank. We have to thank SAPFB for the funding. They're our funders so that we get the money to put these shows on. And then we also Coalition to Stop Campus Hunger. We are always trying to come up with creative things to do for you. We appreciate all the help on the backside of that. We also thank all of our helpers and all of our cooks today and coming into the kitchen and being with us. Plus, I want to mention the wormery. So the wormery at Magoon is one of our resources where we utilize and get rid of food scraps. So they have classes and you can learn how to do worm bins and you can utilize that for food waste. And you come up with some amazing soil. So wormohana.org is a great resource for us. And the eggplant that we can get from Urban Garden Center. So all kinds of places locally that we can source our food. Have a great weekend. We will see you next semester where we can bring you another one of our cooking shows. But otherwise, have a wonderful rest of your evening. Hopefully you enjoy your dishes and we look forward to seeing you again. Take care.